A María, a José de las Marías. Dios te salve María, llena de gracia, el Señor es contigo, bendita. Humilde y querido Jesús, José y María. Humilde. Dios te salve María, llena de gracia, el Señor es contigo, bendita todas las mujeres y bendito sea tu fruto de Jesús. Dios te salve María.
This microphone that much, we'll see. The first poem I'm going to read for you today is called Pan. Okay. Chile left me like a bakery. I was a boilillo raised in Atacama ovens. One, cold, brown. Morning desayunos, afternoon tea times gave upturned taste of baking wet flour blown in from the streets. Crisp happiness like crumbs flaked on my shirts and on my smiles. Flowing butter spread soft inside. America came. Pan instead turned into runny-nosed little squares, each measured so, one like the other. Pan was now squeezed, plastic packed, sliced loaves. Loathed, not loved, like my burritos before. It left no room to savor the sabor. The second poem I'm going to read for you is called, it's entitled, it begins with you. It's a you. You were the short gasps of moist frenzied air and draped over hair, hiding your face like sweet black licorice night. Steaming moon glow, assaulted senses sigh, fingers stroke, ripples body, moist peach skin leads to watercolored eyes. Eyes now rake warm silhouettes down turnip breast, stomach winks, blue lips kiss, cool moon shines down on cafe con leche thighs. Next poem is also entitled. I must have lost nights of sleep with that woman who burned sex into me like a brand, with that woman who turned cold nights into cold shades of smoking sweat, us lying there, thinking not to think of foreclosed homes, hungry parents, late arriving loans. Maybe we figured troubles would disappear in the silent expanse of shut eyes, shouting in orgasm. I hung on to you like a wino does a bottle. Maybe more like a kid does his blanket. What else could I do? I was only 19. Next poem I was thinking about, if I was talking about sex or something with somebody, how would I describe it in letters? I started writing down the different feelings I come up with the alphabet. Can I slip an S closer to your breast? Perhaps take an L and use its elbow to stroke the softness of your hair there. We have the darkness of this sheet to stretch out and hide in, to use as our blanket. Maybe I might drop an M somewhere around your ear and let their legs reach and hook themselves, dangle off your earlobes. Bees could roll down your back like beads of velvet, and we could end the night. Hair falling onto my face like teas as you and I laugh together, clutching hands, in a night spent under paper white sheets, sweating letters in bed. Next poem is called Sensualidad. I don't know how many of you have read Rubén Darío, but I consider him one of the greatest Latino Spanish-speaking poets of all time. He revolutionized Spanish poetry. Incredible, incredible poetry. Writes from a really sensual standpoint, and you can see, sometimes I follow along in that kind of style. But this poem is called Sensualidad. Like the S's stretched out on this page, clean and wet, like long nights spread on silk, sensualidad, sensualidad. Rich as azúcar or sugar, stretching my tongue for consonants to describe scratching, rubbing my chin against fur skins, soft and warm as the word suave. Words pressing and rubbing, sensualidad, sensualidad. Did Ruben's outstretched hand reach and run fibers under fingertips, under fingernails, pressing moist lips against boughs of black dew? Perhaps a painting of a prostitute, naked under mink furs, body crying out like pubis, sweating, waiting, anticipating. Jade incense slithers next to your skin, and my nostrils burn at the thought of you. Sensualidad, sensualidad, sensualidad. Next poem I just wrote, it's called El Reflejo. I just wrote it when I was at Berkeley. The ideas were written down when I was at Berkeley. I was living in a small apartment. And just across the apartment, you could see the other apartments, your wall-to-wall with apartments. And I could see a family there. It always surprised me how this lady always smiled. You took the time to smile at you. And she was a Chicana too. And it surprised me that she would do that, you know. So I wrote this poem about it. Recuerdo mirándote por la mañana, calientamos unas tortillas. Tus hijos recién despiertos se hincaban en grandes sillas. El abrigo que siempre llevas no esconde esos escalofríos y tus miradas preocupadas lanzan lágrimas endurecidas. Cuando miras hacia mí, cuando miras hacia este cuarto alejado, me pregunto, ¿cómo sueltas esas sonrisas a este extranjero tan desesperado? The next poem is going to be called Don't Be Afraid, Mija. And I just took time here in this poem just to discuss how I might explain to my kids, you know, to remember their past and to remember their language, to remember, you know, the skin tones, to remember the, you know, their grandparents. And I wanted to catch a poem that might explain to them all these things. So I can show them here. This is what I want you to remember. It's called Do Not Be Afraid, Mija. If your skin swims into a cream softer than the moon, if your somber tones are swallowed and lost in the nighttime sky, if at night you find your tongue split in two, forked, slithering against your cheek, mumbling half phrases of lost lenguaje, if your feet feel small next to big bridge steps that cross continents and hop so quick even shadows are lost, when your lines are lost, look at your abuelito's eyes, trace them, or listen to hear songs. Mija, don't be afraid to find your lines, the creases of my skin trace past to past, to smell my burnt skin, to taste your words like sweet pieces of tulum. Next one, I was thinking more about along the lines of how poetry in Spanish and English differ, and about the different sounds that you find in the two languages. And it's called Spanish sounds. This is what I honestly think about the difference between the two languages. I like the way Spanish stays on the roof of my mouth, like sweet candy. One word, like, you know, enamorado, swims between my teeth, flows through palate channels just after the throat opens and strums the sound forward. Words always arching forward, like listeners waiting for the reader to begin. English renders the word a servant. Love falls somewhere into my lungs, under my tongue, between my shrugging shoulders. Said in anger, the Spanish word paces over desert ears, a marching melancholic tone. English anger shoots into black nights of silence, bullets piercing blood-red ears. You know, the word said perfectly in Spanish can mold itself like a thought and can fall into place perfectly like a leaf. Next poem is I had a question this summertime on this half black, half Spanish girl, and I wrote this poem about her just because I always thought the way she carried herself around was really regal, and so I called her the Nile Queen all the time. So this is the way I described her. Crouching behind reeds, I rose upon legs. You know, yours danced through streams of water. Feet playing on marsh keys, puddles. Your belly, a small opening of the world as it turned. I smelled your breath rise and fall. My pricked hair stood. Mouths might have opened to drink the bees flowing down your elbow, rolling from your thighs. Then remembering myself, my eyes full they fell and saw blood flushed water into red, invading the reeds, red beads of rolling off your legs. Ahead I heard your breath shudder under the gasping cold water. Right then I knew why. Only slave girls could witness a brown skin so true. Like the sand itself, water seemed to harden and become part of you. Next one is called Friday. About 2 weeks ago, I took a trip down to LA on the Amtrak. I saw Commerce. And I don't know if you've ever been around Commerce, but Commerce is one industrial city. And it's just a trip to drive through there or you know, follow the train through there and just look at everybody. Everything just changed. All these things changing on Friday nights. you know, from being a big industrial city to people going home. So I wrote a poem about this and hope you like it. It's called Friday. Noon dips burning an orange glow, the city's heart panting. Day softening and slows, the city sighs to itself. Another weekend, relief begins. Early green-gray evening comes as cool sweat. School stadium lights glare across town, expose hopes and cheers. Others with less to look forward to fade in open garages, sit in couches as if held by hands. In dim light, gasps of beer slip out, scratched between sips of air. Light surrenders and easing in oil blue night falls on laps. Cars become rivers of red and white, bleeding the city, running through distance measured by buildings, glowing a dull green glow over dust-covered factories left open to air like mouths falling in exhaustion. Trees are empty lights, silhouettes of leaves. Darkened by cool blackness, night begins its slide, swallowing the city whole, dripping from the sky, cooling streets and walls, noises ever slower and spaced, slurring beats to a hum, and the city's heart slowly, slowly, slowly starts to relax. This last poem I wrote, it's called Swap Meet. Anybody ever been to the swap meet is gonna know what it's about, so I just let it roll. Swap Meet. Chicano essence burnt into blacktop space lots. Paper cups fly and dance, plastic bags whisper and breathe and clutch hands. Cardboard signs flutter like paper flags, people flooding gates pouring 50 cents to the man who waits as the rain begins at the swap meet. Plastic toys blink in squint colors as Koreans, merchants type chants of barato, 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 barato. Cada color, cada chant, even the greasy smells touch and call out. Music meets tortilla air, exhaust begins burning baby eyes, spilled coke giving tongues to feet, they converse, becoming sticky, hear it, sticky, hear it, sticky, hear it. Hips adjust to children running like small waves in the crowd, falling just past noon, the sun pushes prices even lower as a frenzy begins. Soaring heat bakes the black locks. The blood rushing to cool itself moves into fresh openness between aisles, always speeding and slowing, then bending and flowing until late afternoon it all continues. Humanity boils and is Chicano essence branded into blacktop asphalt. Shades soothe the temp cooling trap shadows as the frenzy under the falling sun continues. Steam, sweat, burning black hair, higher into the sky. Swap meet is Chicano essence boiling from the masses, rising like moist hot air on Saturdays and Sundays when the blood begins at 50 cents, 9 o'clock. Hope you enjoyed the poetry. We'll have one more reader come out, Adolfo Guzman Lopez.
April 29th, 1991. The capital of Gaslamp burns. In Patria Chica, San Diego, the llantos of Rolando Rey reach me at the speed of sound. Batter my swollen eyes, electrify, shock, electrocute. Through my nervous system cables, repeatedly. Los cotorros de la televisión plead to the reservists to report to their stations. Güera's voice oscillates between fear, desperation, and terror, and instinctive protection. Acorralados como bestias. Palmeras brought for 1932 Olympics. Sunglasses melt, trees burn, sol, arena y sangre in the streets of fantastic Los Angeles, Titlan. lined with quemando, flaming, heretic, burning, pastel flames. A lot of people have been influenced by a man who wrote in the 50s and 60s, Mr. Jack Kerouac, and being the hip Chicano that I am, I felt I would not be left out. So here it goes. Her bags fell on the ground as the runaways do on the corner of Hollywood and Vine, just gotten off the bus in a daze, being in some land once familiar. This was not the bus station Lisa was used to. Hers had been demolished to give way to a fancy office building, architectural prize-winning mass of glass and steel, already rusting metal, a home to the complete line of Brooks Brothers clothing, bought at some discount retail chain. Because you know that we're on a budget until I become a partner. The soil of 20 states was on her shoes, clinging to the worn heels and making odd shapes at the tips, quadrilaterals, octagons, and 28-sided figures. Shaking the dirt off, she welcomed herself home. Won't have to shell out $10 for lunch, she thought. But for that one excuse, behind lay hundreds more of why she should have stayed in the land of high-rises, hubbub, cosmopolitan, here and there, and seen a million things in between. Here she'll see returning shadows, yesterday's headlines. Here the word is not Johannesburg. Diversity for display window, diversity's sake. The column of sun that shone through the station's main skylight was enough to let Lisa know she was home. Summer sunbeat oasis of America's vacationeers. America's finest cities spit the ads on the walls next to the rows of cavernous coin-operated lockers, temporary homes to complete wardrobes, prized possessions, and hollowness. She decided to sit down before leaving the station, St. Christopher's Sanctuary, and the odor of anticipation clung on the walls, dripped off and cleaned her shoes. Too bad, won't have to talk to Jan, shoeshine man and prophet of beat. He's heard them all, seen them all. Poor man come to die, rich man come to make a fortune. And this one here, as Chicanos and Latinos, we are seeing ourselves go everywhere. We're out in space now, and hey, we're in politics too, man. So here are my impressions of us being in politics. Hysteria in the trickle-down streets. Listen to the panic of suburbia fall on the doorsteps like today's daily newspapers now thrown at the window. Brown and red ink from the paper stained the stain master bloody. And in their house, Mr. Lawyer and his wife rubbed the plastered Buddha's belly. Aslan has come to your mailbox. Send in your proxy vote. Decide on Mr. Jimenez or Mr. Garcia. Elect Mr. No Longer Minority to represent your best interest. And in their house, Mr. Buddha and a wife rub the plastered lawyer's belly. This is a genre that I've more or less invented. They're called haikukus. Some of you know them, love them, and wish you could have them, but you can't. So here they go. The winter Chicano retreats from his consciousness and hibernates. 1993, after much lobbying by the grunge lobby, the United Nations declares Chabalaba cultural mecca in Aztlan. Can't we all get along? Can't we all get what we can? Get all we can. Get the man all along. Get along the man. Get along, little doggies. Ain't no justice for you. Red, white, black eagle, tears blanket the sunset of El Cesar. Mr. Migra man, don't look at me like that. I'm not your conscience. On the freeway, watch a woman, Chilangos crossing to be crucified. Where were you born? In your racist colonialist fears? A Hispanic after work. Dia de los Muertos happy hour? My brother, hip hop Pachuco, wears 40-gallon pants. Non-fat, NAFTA, our stairmaster to cultural amnesia. By the way, La Famulla is a maid. This is part of an ongoing saga. By the time I finish, I hope to end up with about 6 or 7 of these, but for the most part, well, this is just one of them, so here goes. La Famulla rides the Route 30 with her son to La Jolla Rose of Mansion Street. She listens to a supersonic mariachi band on the Walkman she bought with the first $50 she earned. 2 hours have passed since she left Colonia, Tijuana. She lives above the fields where the border patrol sows fields of anti-immigrant hysteria. When crossing, she tells Mr. Migra Man at checkpoint Chale that she is only going de compras. Back in La Jolla, she gets off with 10 other famullas that clean houses on that street. And in West Side, Oklahoma, guys and dolls style, they dance and leap into each house, 10 houses on that block, and like in that Mary Poppins movie that you and I love, they come out with their trenzas in the air, suspended like that Ruca Pippi Longstocking, and they break into a song and dance number. Windex Pledge and Lysol, what a combination. If we knew the dangers, we'd get compensation. But for now, ni modo, scrub the floors, hands and knees, ammonia fuse, bleach our skin. Windex Pledge and Lysol, what a combination. Years later, and after 2 operations on her knees and other joints, 3 fractured spinal discs, and permanent lung damage. La Familia is able to rest easy, having put her son through college with a liberal arts degree, or quién sabe qué. He has found some newfound hyphenated identity in suburbia. She's happy to go back to Guanajuato, open up a pizza parlor, and smell the wet earth when it rains, because she loves the smell of the wet earth when it rains. Well, that's about it. That's all we have for today. So I'd like to thank every single one of you for coming and buy some coffee from David over there so that Chabalaba is good. Thanks a lot.